Well, hey, I want to welcome those of you that are watching online to Venia. Venia means grace, and here at Venia, we share God's grace by loving people because God accepts us as we are, and He sees the potential of who we can be. And today we're going to be in the book of Noah, talking about this prophet from the 8th century BC, a prophet of the northern kingdom of Israel. And I think it's safe to say that Jonah is the prophet in the Bible with the absolute worst attitude. He's asked by God to go and do something. He doesn't like what God wants him to do, and so he tries to take off on a ship to go the opposite direction of what God wants him to do and where God wants him to go, and he finds himself swallowed up into the belly of a great fish. And so really a bad attitude, and attitude is everything when it comes to our life. So Jonah has an attitude, and a bad attitude in three areas of his life. The first place he has a bad attitude is in the will of God. And think about it this way. If God was to ask you or me to go to somewhere like Iraq right now, where you've got terrorists all over the place, it'd be a difficult thing and a scary thing for us to go there. And so he's afraid to go to this place called Nineveh, afraid of what they might think of him and what they might do to him. And so he flees and goes the opposite direction to Tarshish. Well, he also has a bad attitude about his circumstances. He shows up, there's a boat just ready to go in the opposite direction. He happens to have the right amount of money. And so it's funny, sometimes in our circumstances, we think that just because things are going seemingly in our way, the way we want them to, then we must be doing something that's okay. Not always the case, and so he's got a bad attitude about the circumstances in his life. He also has a bad attitude about people. You know, my mom always raised me up to know this, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Love the sinner, hate the sin. That's what we're called to do as believers. We're not supposed to love sin. We're supposed to hate sin, and we're not supposed to be a part of it. But we need to love the person that's sinning enough to share with them the grace of Jesus Christ. So Jonah, he is going to show us the result of a bad attitude. When you have a bad attitude about these different areas in your life, it results in you no longer being a blessing. See, Jonah is an Israelite. Israel was called by the Lord to be a blessing to the other nations. He's supposed to be a blessing to people. Instead, he's bringing a curse onto this ship. His presence on that ship should have been a blessing. Instead, now it's a curse. So when we're not walking with a good attitude, we are no longer a blessing to other people. And when we're no longer a blessing to other people, we lose out. Just like Jonah lost out. He lost out on the voice of the Lord. He lost out on spiritual energy as you see him at the bottom of the ship sleeping. He lost out on the will to pray. There was a bunch of pagans up on top of the ship. They're praying out to their gods. He's the guy who knew, the one man on board who knew the real God, and he wasn't calling out to him. And finally, he lost his testimony. When you and I aren't a blessing to other people, we lose our testimony. And so maybe you've got a great attitude, but maybe you've found areas of your life your attitude hasn't been exactly what it can be. If you want 3 tips on how you can give yourself a little bit of attitude adjustment, watch the entirety of this message as we show you an attitude adjustment.